Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Learn and Chat. Today, we are going to explore a sport that looks simple at first. Two players, a racket, a ball, and a net. But behind this simple idea, there's a game full of speed, strategy, pressure, and incredible skill. We're talking about tennis. Tennis is one of the most popular individual sports in the world. Millions of people watch tournaments every year, and professional players travel around the world competing in different countries. But how does tennis actually work? Let's make it simple. A tennis court is divided into two sides by a net. A player stands on each side. In a singles match, one player competes against another player. But tennis can also be played in doubles. In doubles, two players compete against two other players. The objective is simple. Hit the ball over the net and make it difficult for your opponent to return it. The ball must normally bounce inside the correct area of the court. If your opponent cannot return the ball correctly, you win the point. Sounds easy, right? Well, not exactly. Professional tennis players can hit the ball at incredible speeds. They also use different types of shots. One of the most important is the serve. The serve begins the point. The player throws the ball into the air and hits it over the net into a special area called the service box. If the first serve misses, the player normally gets a second serve. But if the second serve also misses, something called a double fault happens. The opponent wins the point. After the serve, players can use many different shots. A forehand is usually played on the dominant side of the body. A backhand is played from the opposite side. Some players use one hand for the backhand. Others use two. A volley is a shot where the player hits the ball before it bounces. A lob sends the ball high over an opponent. And a drop shot is a soft shot designed to land close to the net. Good tennis players do much more than hit the ball hard. They use strategy. Sometimes they attack. Sometimes they defend. They change the speed of the ball. They change direction. They use spin. And they try to move their opponent around the court. Now we need to talk about something that confuses many new tennis fans. The score. Why does tennis use numbers like 15, 30, and 40? Let's imagine that two players begin a game. The score starts at 0. In tennis, 0 is often called love. When a player wins the first point, the score becomes 15. When another point, and it becomes 30. The next point makes it 40. And normally, one more point wins the game. So the sequence is love, 15, 30, 40, game. But there's a complication. If both players reach 40, the score is called deuce. From deuce, a player normally needs to win 2 consecutive points to win the game. The first gives the player advantage. The second can win the game. But games are only one level of the scoring system. Players need games to win a set. In many situations, the first player to win 6 games wins the set. However, the player usually needs to win by at least 2 games. If the score becomes 6-6, many tournaments use a tiebreak to decide the set. Then we have the match. Many professional matches are best of 3 sets. That means the first player to win 2 sets wins the match. Men's singles matches at the 4 Grand Slam tournaments are normally best of 5 sets. That means a player must win 3 sets. This can create very long and physically demanding matches. Tennis is also unusual because players compete on different surfaces. The 3 main surfaces are hard court, clay, and grass. And each one changes the game. Clay courts are slower. The ball often bounces higher, and long rallies are common. Grass courts are traditionally faster and can reward aggressive play. Hard courts usually offer a balance between different styles. A player can be excellent on one surface and have more difficulty on another. This is one reason tennis is so interesting. Players must adapt. Now, let's learn some useful tennis vocabulary. A serve starts the point. A rally is a sequence of shots between players. A forehand and backhand are 2 basic ground strokes. An ace is a legal serve that the opponent cannot touch. A double fault happens when both service attempts fail. Deuce means the score is 40-40. A set is a group of games. And a match is the complete competition between the players. So now we understand the basic game. Hit the ball over the net. Keep it inside the court. Win points. Points become games. Games become sets. And sets decide the match. But tennis did not always look like the sport we watch today. To understand where it came from, we need to travel back hundreds of years. Long before modern rackets, giant stadiums, and professional tournaments, people were already playing games that involved hitting a ball back and forth. One of those early games became popular in France. And surprisingly, the first players did not even use rackets. They used their hands. This early game was known as jeu de paume. The name comes from French and means game of the palm. At first, players hit the ball with their hands. Later, they started using gloves. Then, simple rackets appeared. The game became popular in France and other parts of Europe. Kings, nobles, and wealthy people enjoyed playing it. But this was not exactly the tennis we know today. Modern tennis began to develop much later, during the 19th century. In the 1800s, grass lawns became common around large homes in Britain. People wanted outdoor activities they could enjoy on these lawns. Different versions of tennis appeared. Then, in the 1870s, an important step was taken. Major Walter Clopton Wingfield created and promoted a version of lawn tennis. The game used rackets, a net, and a court. The rules continued to change, but tennis was beginning to look more familiar. Then came one of the most important moments in tennis history. In 1877, the first Wimbledon tournament was held in London. Only men competed in the singles event. Spencer Gore became the first Wimbledon men's singles champion. Wimbledon continued to grow. Women's singles were added in 1884. Over time, the tournament became one of the most famous sporting events in the world, and it is still played on grass today. But tennis was not staying in Britain. The sport traveled. It became popular in Europe, the United States, Australia, and many other places. International competitions began to develop. In 1900, a new team competition started. Today, we know it as the Davis Cup. Instead of individual players competing only for themselves, players represented their countries. This created a different type of tennis experience. National pride became part of the competition. Women's international team tennis later developed its own major competition, now called the Billie Jean King Cup. As tennis expanded, several tournaments became especially important. Today, tournaments are known as the Grand Slams. The Australian Open, the French Open, Wimbledon, and the U.S. Open. These are the biggest individual tournaments in professional tennis. Winning one Grand Slam title is a major achievement. Winning all four during a career is extremely difficult. And winning all four in the same calendar year is one of the rarest achievements in the sport. Each Grand Slam also has its own personality. The Australian Open is played on hard courts. The French Open is played on clay. Wimbledon is played on grass. And the U.S. Open is played on hard courts. So the best players need to adapt to different conditions. Tennis was becoming international, but there was still an important difference between amateur and professional players. For many years, some of the biggest traditional tournaments were mainly for amateur players. Professional players could not always compete in them. Then everything changed in 1968. Tennis entered what is called the Open Era. Major tournaments began allowing professional players to compete with amateurs. This transformed the sport. Professional tennis grew rapidly. Prize money increased. Television brought matches into millions of homes. And new stars became international celebrities. One of the most important players of this period was Rod Laver from Australia. Laver achieved something extraordinary. In 1969, he won all four Grand Slam singles tournaments in the same calendar year. Australian Open, French Open, Wimbledon, U.S. Open, for major titles in 1 year. It remains one of the greatest achievements in men's tennis history. Women's tennis was also changing, and one player became important both on and off the court. Billie Jean King. King was a great champion, but she also fought for equality in tennis. She wanted women to receive more respect, more opportunities, and better prize money. In 1973, she played a famous exhibition match against Bobby Riggs. The event became known as the Battle of the Sexes. Millions of people watched. King won the match, but its cultural importance was much bigger than the result. During the 1970s and 1980s, tennis produced many unforgettable personalities. Bjorn Borg became famous for his calm personality and incredible success. John McEnroe was brilliant, emotional, and sometimes controversial. Chris Evert became one of the greatest women's players in history. Martina Navratilova combined athletic ability with an aggressive style and won major titles for many years. Then another generation arrived. Steffi Graf became one of the dominant players in women's tennis. In 1988, she achieved something extraordinary. She won all 4 Grand Slam singles titles and also won Olympic gold. This achievement became known as the Golden Slam. On the men's side, players such as Pete Sampras and Andre Agassi became global stars during the 1990s. They had different personalities and different playing styles. Their rivalry attracted millions of fans. By the end of the 20th century, tennis had become a truly global professional sport. Players came from many countries. Major tournaments attracted enormous audiences. Matches were broadcast around the world, and champions could become international celebrities. But tennis was about to enter another extraordinary period. On the women's side, 2 sisters from the United States would transform the game with their power, athletic ability, and determination. Venus and Serena Williams. And on the men's side, 3 players were preparing to create one of the greatest eras in sports history. Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic. Venus and Serena Williams changed women's tennis. They were powerful, fast, athletic, and extremely competitive. Venus became a major champion and one of the best players in the world. Serena went even further. She became one of the greatest tennis players in history. Serena won 23 Grand Slam singles titles during the Open era. She could dominate with her serve. She could attack from the baseline. And she was famous for performing well under pressure. The Williams sisters also played doubles together and won major titles and Olympic gold medals. Their influence went far beyond trophies. They inspired a new generation of athletes around the world. At the same time, men's tennis was entering an extraordinary period. It began with Roger Federer. Federer was from Switzerland. His game looked smooth and elegant. He had an excellent serve, a beautiful one-handed backhand, and incredible control of the ball. Federer started winning Grand Slam titles and became the #1 player in the world. Then a young player from Spain arrived, Rafael Nadal. Nadal played with incredible energy. He was fast, strong, and famous for fighting for every point. He became especially dominant on clay, and one tournament became closely connected to his name, the French Open. Nadal won the men's singles title there 14 times. 14. It is one of the most remarkable records in tennis. Federer and Nadal created an incredible rivalry, but then another player joined them, Novak Djokovic from Serbia. Djokovic had excellent movement, incredible flexibility, and one of the best returns of serve in tennis history. He was also extremely difficult to defeat in important matches. Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, they became known as the Big Three. For many years, they dominated men's tennis. They played unforgettable matches against each other. They broke records. They won Grand Slam after Grand Slam. And fans constantly debated one question: who is the greatest of all time? Federer finished his career with 20 Grand Slam singles titles. Nadal finished with 22. Djokovic moved beyond both of them in the men's Grand Slam race. But numbers tell only part of the story. Each player had a different style. Each had different strengths. And together, they created one of the greatest periods in tennis history. Women's tennis was also producing new champions. Players from many countries reached the top. Naomi Osaka became a major champion. Ashley Barty reached #1 and won Grand Slam titles on different surfaces. Iga Swiatek became one of the strongest players of her generation, especially on clay. Aryna Sabalenka became known for her powerful serve and aggressive game. Coco Gauff became a major star while still very young. Tennis was becoming even more international. And then, a new generation appeared in men's tennis. One of the biggest names was Carlos Alcaraz from Spain. Alcaraz combined speed, power, creativity, and excellent movement. He could defend from difficult positions and suddenly attack. Another major player was Jannik Sinner from Italy. Sinner became famous for his clean, powerful ground strokes and calm style. Alcaraz and Sinner began meeting in important matches. Fans started wondering if this could become the next great tennis rivalry. The sport was changing in other ways, too. Technology became more important. Electronic systems could help decide whether a ball was in or out. Players used advanced information to study their performance. Rackets, strings, training, nutrition, and recovery continued to improve. But even with all this technology, the basic challenge of tennis remained the same. One player stands on one side, another player stands on the other. There is no teammate who can take your place when you are tired. You need to solve problems alone. You need physical strength, but you also need mental strength. Imagine serving for a championship. Thousands of people are watching in the stadium. Millions may be watching on television. Your hand is holding the racket. The ball is in your other hand. And suddenly, everything becomes quiet. You must control your nerves and serve. This psychological battle is one of the reasons tennis can be so dramatic. Let's review some useful vocabulary. A Grand Slam is one of the 4 biggest tournaments in tennis. A champion is the player who wins a tournament. A ranking shows a player's position compared with other professional players. A baseline is the line at the back of the court. A ground stroke is a shot normally played after the ball bounces. Match point means a player can win the match by winning the next point. And number 1 means the player is at the top of the professional rankings. Now, think about the journey tennis has taken. It began with old ball games where people sometimes used their hands. Rackets appeared. Modern lawn tennis developed in Britain. Wimbledon began in 1877. The sport traveled around the world. The Grand Slam tournaments became legendary. Professional tennis entered the open era. Rod Laver made history. Billie Jean King fought for equality. Borg, McEnroe, Evert, Navratilova, Graf, Sampras, and Agassi became stars. Venus and Serena Williams transformed women's tennis. Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic created an unforgettable era. And now, players like Alcaraz, Sinner, Swiatek, Sabalenka, Goff, and other young stars are writing new chapters. The names change. The technology changes. Records are broken. But the idea remains beautifully simple. A racket, a ball, a net, and 2 players try to find a way to win one more point. Thank you for listening to Learn and Chat. Remember, you are not only learning about tennis today, you are also practicing your English. You do not need to understand every word. Listen for the main ideas. Learn new vocabulary from the context. And listen again when you can. Every time you listen, your ears become more familiar with English. Keep listening. Keep learning. Stay curious. And I'll see you in our next story.